Men used to go to war and build things, and now they race you to get a seat first on the subway.
Just when you thought that the state of the culture couldn't get any more depressing, you discover this new trend where women film men in public, doing stuff like drinking smoothies or going to sports events, and then they add the caption, "Men used to go to war, now they do this." And they don't just target strangers. You've got women filming their boyfriends and their husbands engaged in their hobby. Men used to go to war, and now they do this.
Men used to go to war. Now they put little sticks in the grass and hit balls off of them.
You know what men used to do back in the day? They used to go to war, get their limbs blown off, they used to get trench foot. Guys, where are the men that will bow at your feet?
Men should bow at my feet. Men should go to war. They should die for me. Any man who hears this message is going to feel dehumanized. And yes, this attitude does reveal an entitlement and a sexism that women should be held accountable for. But we also need to be honest and admit the truth, which is that this dehumanizing anti-male attitude has not arisen in a vacuum. For some reason, men went along with it. Men used to be proud of their strength, but over time, many were just worn down, was broken by the constant messaging that their masculinity was toxic. And so men allowed themselves to be domesticated, voluntarily shrinking themselves and jumping into the box that was created for them, not realizing the danger. You see, feminism didn't attack like a traditional enemy, using superior strength. No, it worked more subtly, reframing vulnerability as moral superiority and casting traditional male traits as suspect or dangerous, which had the result of leaving men feeling like their masculinity was some kind of original sin. Men weren't overpowered, they laid down their own defenses, they defeated themselves. And let's be absolutely clear, this box that men have been put into, that was not created with men's flourishing in mind. By squashing men into a box like this, the intention was to make the world more comfortable for women. Some feminists do speak about men's mental health, but if you observe closely, you'll notice that the push for men to become more emotionally available is often less about genuine care for men's well-being and more about making men easier to influence, control, and emotionally predict. A lot of women feel deep relief when their boyfriends start their therapy journey. It softens them, makes them more emotional, more attuned, more open. But sometimes while he's on that journey, it reconnects him with something else: pride, strength, standards, clear boundaries, and a willingness to live for something bigger than approval. But women can find this very threatening. When a man stops over-functioning for validation and he starts living from self-trust, it can stir up a lot of anxiety in the relationship. When he was soft and emotional, she felt secure. But now that he's strong and confident in himself, it raises all these terrifying questions. Like, who will he become, and is there going to be space for me? And it's at this point for many men where their healthy masculine strength gets mislabeled as toxic. It's not. He's good. He's confident. He's secure. He has high self-esteem, but she feels less in control. She feels less emotionally safe. And so the response to his positive development isn't encouragement, it's antagonism. What so many people in the culture have labeled a rise in misogyny could more accurately be described as a rebirth of masculine pride. Men, without shame, celebrating their manhood, releasing decades of built-up guilt over their gender. That is a wonderful thing. It's beautiful, it's healthy, and it's actually to everyone's benefit. But it does disrupt the familiar dynamic that the culture and many couples have unconsciously settled into, where men live in a state of constant apology, shrinking himself in order to keep the emotional peace. But that time is coming to an end. It was inevitable. At some point, men were always going to reclaim their dignity. And one of the reasons is because men have noticed that the moment that they walk into the box, that's when the women in their lives lose respect for them. I'm going to explain why in a moment, but first I want to take a second to talk about another box. But this one has something good inside: quality skincare products that are going to keep you looking healthy and young. I'm talking, of course, about the sponsor of today's video, Tish Hanley. Here's what most guys don't realize is that you can hit the gym, you can dress nice, you can eat good food, but if your skin looks dull or dry or broken out, people notice. Tiege Hanley makes skincare simple. It's a complete system built around easy daily routines. Their level 1 system comes with the 4 essentials: a daily face wash to keep your skin clean, an exfoliating scrub to clear out dead skin and unclog pores, an AM moisturizer with SPF 20 for daytime protection, and a PM moisturizer to help your skin repair overnight. And each box comes with a step-by-step card that tells you exactly how much to use and when. Over 16,000 guys have left 5-star reviews. And Tiege Hanley is so confident that you'll love their product that they offer their handsome guarantee. That means you love it or you get your money back. And here's the best part. Because they're sponsoring this video, you'll get up to 40% off your first box, plus another 20% off for life if you sign up as a member, and you'll get a free gift worth $20. One of the gifts is this awesome body scrubber. It's perfect for exfoliating in the shower. I use mine every day. So just click the link and you can start your routine today. Your skin will thank you. Now let's return to the other box. The one that men walked into thinking that by showing themselves to be soft, emotionally available, agreeable, accommodating, sensitive men, that women would then find them more attractive. That might have been what he was hoping for, but that's not what his experience was. To a woman, he might feel safe, predictable, comfortable, but those emotions don't generate an authentic desire. And as the relationship goes on, something else is going to start to creep in. Contempt, resentment, a loss of respect. Because for most women, what stirs her truest, deepest desire is not a man that she can control. It's a man that she can trust is going to stay rooted in himself, even if sometimes that scares her. It's biological. Her sexual response is activated by men who are grounded, who are self-led, who live their lives guided by inner standards, not external permission. This is why the modern dating market is such a mess. It's because men thought that it was a kind thing to do to allow women to define masculinity for them, not realizing that women were not capable of doing that job. They were still maturing in their own understanding of what they truly want deep down. You should not be asking someone who is deeply confused for guidance.
So I think my problem is that I want a man to lead me and take care of me, but I don't want no man telling me what to do.
Gentlemen, you can't allow women like this to tell you what it means to be a man. She doesn't know. She hasn't figured herself out yet, so she's not going to be able to help you. The truth is that there was a cultural moment, a real window, where men genuinely stopped and listened to women. Lots of guys looked inwards. They took on the feedback. They tried to change. They became softer and more emotionally available, tried to better accommodate what women said that they wanted. And there was genuine hope and optimism that this might lead to the golden age of gender relations. Men and women understanding and appreciating each other. But seeing how that has all turned out, it's left the majority of men feeling heartbroken and devastated. Collectively, men put their trust in the wrong people. For decades, the dominant cultural voice has been feminism. But with leadership comes responsibility. You have to consider the impact on everybody, not just yourself. But under feminist stewardship, it feels to men like the culture has not been steered towards mutual understanding and healing between the genders. It feels like women have just been grabbing all of the advantages for themselves that they can. Men took on some blame, they took some accountability. Great. Now, here's a whole bunch more. In fact, here's all of it. It's so difficult for men to continue to live inside this narrative because it feels so lopsided. Elevate women, devalue men. Empower one side at the emotional expense of the other. But it's falling apart now because there are so many men who are waking up to the double standards, to the inconsistencies. They're seeking out content like mine, not out of bitterness, but out of a desperate need for truth, for sanity, for fairness and justice and rationality. For so many guys, this isn't about misogyny. It's about trying to create a system that will deliver what feminism originally promised to do, a real partnership between men and women. But to do that, you cannot have a system that is built on suppression or shame or one-sided cultural myths. And I can understand for women that it's probably going to feel uncomfortable to have the spotlight placed on you, to have your behaviors and attitudes examined. But what you need to understand is that this is not about payback. It's about recalibration and a return to balance. There are important questions that men need answers to. Why is it okay for you to say that you won't date a man because he's short, but he's not allowed to say he won't date a woman because she's fat? Why is he expected to be a modern man and do half of the household chores, but also be a traditional man and financially provide for the household? Why is it that when he became a father, he was told that he needed to do half of the parenting, that he needs to take on an equal share? But now that they're getting a divorce, he's only allowed to see his children 2 weekends a month. No amount of shame is going to silence men from asking these questions anymore. Men have just reached their limit. The hypocrisy is just too outrageous to ignore. The chronic guilt that men have felt about their masculinity and carried for so many years, it's beginning to run out. And I understand from a feminist perspective that there may well have been problems with old school masculinity. But when all you have to offer is criticisms and you destroy a system without having a viable alternative to replace it, it just breeds chaos. So yes, men are redefining their own role. They're discussing what masculinity means, and they're not looking to women to provide guidance in that. There is a valid feeling amongst many men that the trust that was extended to women to participate in the process of redefining what masculinity is, that trust was abused, and now it has eroded. So I am sorry if you feel excluded, but the truth is that right now, ladies, there is no seat at the table for you. At this moment, your input is not welcome. Moving forward into this new chapter of masculinity, that's going to be something that men define for themselves. And broadly speaking, that's sort of what the manosphere is. It's an attempt to begin that process. If you examine the movement closely, you can see that there are 2 different aims: cultural critique on the one hand and self-improvement on the other. And you might assume that self-development, discipline, and personal growth might be the biggest unifying factor amongst all these different men. But interestingly, it's actually the cultural critique that creates the strongest unifying force, the biggest point of agreement. Across the manosphere, you've got all kinds of different subgroups, different philosophies, different values, and they're all promoting different solutions. Self-improvement to this group of guys looks very different to what it means to these guys. And so truthfully, they don't really have that much in common with each other. What ties them together is cultural critique. There is widespread agreement on what the problem is: the hypocrisy, the double standards, the injustice that men face in the current system. If you break it down, the 3 stages of the masculine rebirth is that you've got to first destroy the old system and then assert the right to self-define. That's the second step. But it's actually in the 3rd stage that things are going to get really interesting, because that's when we move away from just defiance and opposition and saying what we don't like, and we begin to actively create something new, something positive, a vision forward. Now, not every man wants to even reach that stage. They're more comfortable in stage 1 because it's easier to criticize feminism for being a terrible leader than it is to actually have to lead yourself. Believe it or not, there are some political parties that don't mind losing elections because it's a cushier gig to sit in opposition and just criticize everything that the government does. That way you don't have to actually have the responsibility and scrutiny that comes with governing yourself. For some guys, they've really enjoyed the focus on women's hypocrisy because it's meant less accountability for their own inconsistencies. But these guys are not really helpful. They're cynically exploiting the credibility of the men's rights movement just to camouflage their own transgressions. And you'll probably also find that there's going to be some infighting because there's going to be a vested interest from some guys to try and preserve the cultural critique unity of the men's movement. They want to unite them under one banner, their banner, convincing them to adopt their values, to go their way. But that's not going to work because men aren't followers, men are leaders. A healthy man is never going to sign up to be a pawn in somebody else's chess game. He's not going to do it. He's a king. That's what a man is. He plays his own game. If we succeed in successfully dismantling the feminist paradigm, then truthfully, the unity of the manosphere should die with it. And it should be replaced with disagreement, healthy, respectful debates between men. The lifelong bachelor who's never going to commit in a relationship debates with the traditional family man who got married and has 5 children. And next week they debate the guy who makes a lot of money, or the stay-at-home dad, or the man who shaves his head and becomes a monk. That's what we want, 1,000 different viewpoints all being discussed and challenged. That way every man can listen and then find what resonates with him personally, because there is no one single way that men should live. You are a man. You are an individual. You will choose your own path that suits you. You don't need a leader, but you might want companions, fellow men to bounce your ideas off so you can better clarify your own values. That's what I love about the Hero Circle, the weekly men's discussion groups that I run, because this is what we do. There's no attempt to enforce conformity. We support and challenge each other with the goal of helping each man become better aligned with himself. It's a beautiful process. It's very rewarding work. And the best news is that you as an individual, you don't need to wait for the old system to collapse before you start creating your new identity. If you look around, you'll see that there's so many different versions of masculinity on offer. And the trick isn't to find one and then just throw yourself into it with blind tribalism. It's to consider them all, to find what's good, what's bad, to consult your own soul, and then to create a masculinity that reflects you, the unique man that you are. There's something useful in almost everything. I'll use myself as an example. Like, I love the black pill because they demonstrate how important looks actually are to women, but I also think that personality, values, wealth, and game all play a role in female attraction. I love how the men who go their own way assert their own right to their own happiness. That's inspiring, but I also want a relationship. Feminism sucks in most things, but it did loosen social roles to the point where being a stay-at-home dad and spending lots of time with children is not as weird as it was 50 years ago. That's a good thing. The red pill's great on evolutionary psychology. I do find its outlook is more cynical than my natural kind of optimism. And like modern men, I don't really like the sort of polyamorous lifestyle, but I think that they do have great insights about how to reduce your own internal shame about your own sexuality. I have heaps in common with traditional conservative men like family values, but I'm not religious. And I'm always going to have a soft spot for pickup artists because that's where my journey began. But I also have no interest in seducing new women every single week. I want a relationship. But here's the point, is that these are just my thoughts. Like, they reflect me, Alexander, the unique person that I am. You don't need to agree with me. You shouldn't. You haven't lived my experiences. You don't have my neurology. If you were to live your life as a clone of mine, then you have failed as a man. You've got to discover your own path. You are your own man. You're your own leader. You've got to figure out what's right for you. And that's pretty cool, right? Like, it's your life. You get to choose. You can do whatever you want. And if you consider me a worthwhile companion as you go through that journey, not a leader, but a fellow traveler, and listening to me talk about my own values is in some way helping you clarify your own, then I'm humbled. I feel lucky and grateful that I am one of the voices that you trust to test your own ideas against. Now, you might ask, Alexander, if this final stage of defining your identity excites you so much, then why is so much of your content still focused on criticizing the old paradigm? Two reasons. One is it's not done yet. The battle is far from being over. The research shows that bias against men is stronger than any other characteristic you could name. And the other reason is that some men are not ready to move on yet. They're still in the grieving phase. When you have been lied to and mistreated for years, you need to have that pain validated first before you feel strong enough to get back on the horse. So my videos do a mix. I criticize the old, but I also talk about my values, science, therapy, family, monogamy. But it's on Patreon where I go into a lot more depth on that stuff. That's where the content becomes more detailed and practical. If you like my cultural critiques, but you don't vibe with me much personally, you don't share my values, then my Patreon's probably not going to be for you. But if you watch my videos and you think, wow, like, I'm actually pretty similar to this Alexander Grace guy. He thinks the same way I do. If that's you, then you're really gonna like my Patreon. It just takes everything to the next level. As an example, for the extended version of this video, I'm gonna talk about the morality of the ends justify the means and why I so strongly disagree with that. Specifically in regards to what relationships are going to look like in the future, because I think that future relationships are going to be far superior to the ones in the past. Even if they both end up looking like traditional gender roles, the means by which we get there, I think, is extremely important. And in a roundabout way, this might actually be one of the lasting legacies of feminism that gives us something positive. So if you want to keep watching this video, you want to take your relationship with this content to a deeper level, then please come and join me over on Patreon.